Hello, and welcome back to the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and today we're digging in to the green behind the green and what it means for the future of the Australian cannabis industry. Our guest today is Tom Forrest, a cannabis entrepreneur, farmer, and passionate advocate for the plant who's driven by sustainable cultivation practices. As a leading voice in the cannabis community, Tom is on the cutting edge of what's possible in terms of growing cannabis in a way that's both environmentally responsible and economically viable. We're diving into his journey into cannabis advocacy, what really sparked his obsession with sustainability, and why things like terroir and transparency actually matter when we're talking about good weed. Before we get into big topics, we're kicking things off with a rapid fire round to get to know Tom a little better. And hey, if you've got a question you'd love me to throw into a future rapid fire segment, shoot it through to AusCannaReviews@gmail.com. All right, you know how we do it around here. Pack your vape, get comfy, and let's dive in. Are you ready? Rapid fire.
Okay, yep, ready when you are.
If you had to live without one, would it be coffee or your phone?
I would happily live without my phone if that was societally acceptable.
Me too. What's your favorite outdoor activity?
Gardening, farming. That's a really tough question. Anything with my hands in the dirt and I'm happy.
Do you believe the future of cannabis cultivation will be more tech-driven or nature-based?
These are good questions. I think there's a beautiful melting pot of science and art, and I think the art will take into account the spirituality, the nature side of cannabis, the interaction with plants that science can't even comprehend right now, but the tech will allow us to quantify that and support that and make smarter decisions. So I'd sit on the fence and say I think there'll be a beautiful merging of the two.
I like it. That's a very balanced answer, sir. What's the best advice you could give your younger self?
Ooh, I don't regret any of the cannabis I consumed. I don't regret any of the parties that I went to. I would possibly say spend more time in the garden with mum as a junior. They didn't need to wait to appreciate that as an adult.
I like that one a lot. What's your go-to activity when you need to clear your mind?
Mountain bike riding. Go downhill, fear of death, adrenaline, try not to die, but be surrounded by nature. It's beautiful.
So you're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie?
I like a little bit of adrenaline. I'm not one of those crazy downhill guys. I'll do little jumps and go around with a few friends, but yeah, it's more that just focus that you need to have when you're on a mountain bike and you're going around corners and over jumps. You can't be thinking about emails or WhatsApps. You're really focused on just being present and being mindful and living in the moment.
Yep, you're in the zone. I feel that. Listener submitted question from Tiffany in Airlie Beach, Queensland. And I love her question. If people were watching your life as a movie and the audience was screaming at you to do something, what would it be and what would need to change?
They'd probably be screaming at me to stop being so manic with my emails because no one's having a good time with that. What would need to change is, I guess, getting some level of work-life balance so that there's more mountain bike riding and gardening content and less frantically typing at a screen content in our film.
Going back to that balance again. I like it. What's one skill you think everybody should learn?
Everyone should have basic poulterer abilities. Everyone should be able to look after chickens. I feel just to be slightly abstract, I feel like that's something, if more people had chickens, they'd learn self-sufficiency, they'd learn about gardening, um, some poulterer skills. Has anyone said that before?
That's great, though. I love it because I feel like taking care of chickens would be, like, really full on, like, more than, like, your average animal would be. But my husband is constantly telling me we need to get chickens, and I can't commit.
You should. They're fun little dinosaurs. And then kind of figure out their different personalities, and then you just start to make them comfortable, and they reward you with free protein. It's a beautiful relationship. But they can be angry little dinosaurs, so it's pretty fun.
Which is what I'm afraid of. I don't want angry chickens chasing me.
No, it's hilarious. Nothing is funnier when they're just like hassling you for a feed, and you're like, "Yo, you're 1/10 the size of me. Pick your battles." So you'll always win, but they'll tell you their feelings. They'll let you know.
All right, I'm gonna take that advice on board, Tom. We might have to circle back to this one day and talk about, my small chicken farm.
Yeah, we're gonna get you some extra fluffy, extra adorable chickens. Start with the cutest ones possible.
I think that's what's gonna happen. He's literally gonna come home with, like, some really fluffy, cute little chicken, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh my god, it's so cute. We have to keep it."
Perfect. Yeah, I support this.
Hopefully, he doesn't listen to this episode. Um, do you prefer quiet, serene spaces or vibrant, bustling environments?
I spent the better part of my 20s on like bush doof dance floors and getting amongst psytrance and drum and bass parties, which I loved, like the sensory overload of a psychedelic festival. But the older I get, the more I appreciate the quietness of still being out in the bush, but just with the nature noises and yeah, the serenity side of things. So I think as I get older, I always have a love for a vibrant, colorful dance floor that's loud and exciting. But I think I start to appreciate the slower pace of nature just as it is.
I gotta agree with that 100%. 100%, 'cause younger me, yeah, man, let's go dance in a party in a field in the middle of the nowhere with what you're saying, drum and bass, doof, 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 yeah, good times. Now I'm like, "No, let's just listen to the birds."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like probably in similar locations as well. Like going out and just feel like, oh, this would be a great place for a party. But geez, it's nice for a picnic.
Yeah, uh, yeah. Maybe we're just getting old, Tom. Maybe we're just getting old. Um, do you believe in luck or do you think we make our own destiny?
I think we make our own destiny. I think there's things that happen fortuitously, and I don't know, like my sister has amazing ocean karma. Like she's a marine biologist. She's is saving the world, and then when she goes out on a boat, dolphins will do flips for her. Whales will come and say hello. Whenever she's around nature, nature is lucky for her. Like she has this incredible interaction with the natural world, and I think that's I wouldn't call it luck. I'd say those sorts of things, like those kinds of people attract those moments. And some would say it's luck. Others would say they've created that environment around them.
I wholeheartedly believe that what you put out is what you get back, whether you realize that or not. And I don't know if that's karma, if you will, but like anything you do, like what you're saying with your sister, yeah, man, the world knows what's up, and they're like, oh, let's go say hello to her and thank her.
Exactly. It's
100%.
something energetic that we can't even quantify, but those, yeah, these things that you put out will come back to you in some form.
If you could have a mythical creature as a pet, what would you choose? And how would you take care of it?
Or Bulbasaur, maybe? Can I choose a Pokemon? Is that a mythical creature?
Sure.
I probably want a Bulbasaur or a Squirtle, and like the Squirtle could help me in the garden. Starting Pokemon, yes. Yeah, I'm sticking with that answer. Yeah, I think Bulbasaur or a Squirtle hanging out would be dope.
And just put them in the garden. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be free range. Like they could come in through the dog door and come out and help me in the veggie patch as needed.
Yeah, no, I like it. We keep circling back to Into the Garden. Yeah, no, I love it. Tom, common theme here. Common theme. What's the weirdest piece of advice you've heard about cannabis cultivation?
Oh, that's such a big question. Like, there's a lot of incorrect advice that goes around, and yeah, I find it really difficult to not immediately tell people these things because there's a lot of misinformation or like that sort of, for lack of a better term, bro science that exists. Um, it's hard to pick which one. Some of the things you hear, but like we have a company that sells an amazing fertilizer brand, and some of the stories you hear of people like using the AB fertilizer incorrectly, being told, "Oh, put in part A," then a month later put in part B, or just really basic things. Those things drive me out the wall. Other growers that listen to this will appreciate like how simple fertilizer can be, but how some people can make it far more complex than it needs to be. So yeah, I don't identify just one. That's a tricky one.
Perhaps the theme there would just be you wish people kept it a little bit more simple and didn't overcomplicate things.
Happens more than you think. Yeah.
So, last question. Do you have any rituals or habits that help you stay focused during the workday?
Yeah. Coffee. We're not doing video, but coffee is ritual number one. Starting my day with a mocha pot. Yeah. Essential, like adult fuel. I think the mocha pot is my favorite ritual, like those little Italian stovetop coffees. I just was introduced to this by a friend. Have you got a mocha pot?
Is it that one where they're like the reverse percolator where they come up through through the glass and then they slowly drip back down? Because you've
No, it's like it's
oh.
the little Italian design. Bialetti is the famous brand, and it's kind of like that shape, and it pushes steam up through a cone shape within the actual mocha pot, and then it just collects as liquid in the top. And yeah, it's like the old European style. The all Italians and the Croatians have the mocha pot.
I think we actually have one because my husband's, he better listen to this damn episode. So I'm pretty sure he's got one of these little, yeah, because he got it because it was like the best way to have coffee when he's away, when he's out on, because he works oil and gas. And so out on I don't know. But as you're describing it to me, I'm like, I think that's the one that he actually takes to work with.
Like there's the mocha pot. I can't stress it because it's I don't know. My junior self would have said the ritual was chopping up some cannabis, putting it in a pipe, and away we go. Mixing that with an instant coffee. Now I've kind of evolved to a mocha pot and a vape, which is like the slightly more adult version, but still enjoying the same thing.
Slightly more sophisticated, sir. Slightly.
It's a little bit slower in a sense. Like the vape takes its time. It's a bit of a gentler onset. The mocha pot is that there's a process of preparing it and watching it on the stove. Like a bong and an instant coffee is just quick gratification. Mocha pot and a vape is a gentler, nicer way of consuming the same compounds.
You sold me 100% on it though. You 100% because you're right. It's 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 calming because you're waiting for what's happening, but yet things are visually happening. So like there's the anticipation that it's coming. And yeah, no, I'm there. I'm standing in the kitchen with you, Tom. I'm with you 100%. Whew, great round of rapid fire, sir. Great round.
Awesome.
For the listeners who don't know anything about you, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Tom Forrest. I have been working in the cannabis space, the legal cannabis space, since 2016. I studied production horticulture, plant biology, and then moved into studying postgrad agribusiness. I was fortunate to receive a Churchill Fellowship, so I was sent around the world by the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust to publish a white paper on cannabis agronomy, and there's a short film on YouTube where I have much longer hair, traveling around the world, reviewing and inspecting how regulations affect cultivation and sort of the good and the bad and the ugly of that. And yeah, I've also been fortunate to start a medicinal cannabis farm in New Zealand named Puro and work with a leading importer of agricultural supplies in stealth garden wholesale. So we represent brands like House and Garden Nutrients and Plant Mechanics. So that's the Tom with a little spruik for what I do professionally at the same time.
I love how you've downplayed yourself, sir. You're very low key. It's very respectable. I
Um,
think
right. So it's a long journey in the cannabis world.
no, but I do. I love it. Because I think the very first time I'm not even sure how we stumbled across each other. I think actually I s- I found you on Instagram first, and so I think I was just watching like Instagram stories one day, and you were like on a plane going somewhere, and you were like, "Could you guess where I'm going?" And I'm like, where? I don't know." I'm like, "Ooh, tropical, this, that," and like I'm drawing a blank now as to where you actually went, but like the long story short, you like got off the plane and you were like somewhere in the South Pacific, and you're like, "Yeah, we're introducing medicinal cannabis over here, and we're helping sign legislation," and I'm like. You made it sound like you were just going on a golf trip, sir.
I have been very, very fortunate with the companies that I've been involved with and had a hand in starting to get to experience, yeah, amazing travel, meeting prime ministers and senior politicians and political groups around the world. I think first and foremost, I'd say my name's Tom Forrest and I'm a cannabis advocate. And where that's led me has been, yeah, some pretty amazing experiences with people from all walks of life, from politicians to black market croppers, from very colorful humans from all backgrounds. And yeah, I'm really happy to be still on that journey now.
I love it. I have so many questions, but let's start at the very beginning. What caused you or what was there like an event or, something were you a cannabis consumer in your youth? What was it that kind of started you on the road to decide, okay, I'm going to be a cannabis advocate.
So I went to university in Canberra, and that has a very very strong bong culture. So I didn't smoke cannabis. I had dabbled a little bit as a teenager, but I didn't get around it too much until I was at university. And at Canberra, I was kind of learn fast or fall behind. So I learned pretty quickly how to skateboard and how to smoke cannabis. So that was a part of getting through my 20s. I think cannabis helped me balance my emotions as a junior. It was more when I saw my mum got quite crook, and she was on medication that's similar to chemo. The side effects were brutal. Like she was having a really, really hard time just doing basic human things. And then I would see her consume cannabis and go from bedridden and in all kinds of pain and nausea to just getting up and doing the dishes together or taking the dog for a walk and being able to sort of look after herself and have that dignity as a human. And so that was the first real eye opener where I was like, oh, cannabis is more than something that we had fun with at uni. This has got incredible medicinal efficacy. So that was kind of a real big catalyst. And the happy end of the story, mum's alive and well and absolutely thriving at the moment. So there's no sadness there. She actually used cannabis again with a later bout against cancer, and came out the other side as well. So she's a warrior. But what really got me into it was a friend, Nick, introduced me to aquaponics. And so we were setting up aquaponics systems in schools. And then my mum at the same time, we were setting up an aquaponics system in our mum's backyard. I started gardening with my mum. And I just had this light bulb moment where I was like, I love gardening. I love aquaponics, and then learned hydroponics by default. I want to drop everything and do this for cannabis because was still a very, you know, inspired by the things that cannabis had played a role in my life previously. So I quit my job, got a job in a hydroponics store, went backwards. I'd already gotten a degree, and I went backwards to TAFE and studied production horticulture. And that was, yeah, maybe 12 or 13 years ago now, maybe a little bit more. So a few different events in my life and a few amazing people that introduced me to this and that sort of kicked a wheel into motion that I haven't been able to stop.
It's fascinating though, the more people I talk to, I you know, a lot of us have experience with it in our teenage years, maybe our early 20s, and a lot of us describe it the same way. It was very much a social thing for us. We used it to go out, to hang out with our friends, like what you're saying, like, "Oh, I went skateboarding, I this, I that," right? Like, it was very much a social thing, and then somewhere along the way for me, very similar with you, my father had cancer, and, unfortunately, he did pass away, but I remember that towards the end, I very sneaky started mixing his cigarettes, right? What do we call it here? I was spinning it, right? Because my dad was a cigarette smoker and he was against cannabis and blah, blah, blah. Long story short with it, I'm mixing it in. And one night we're sitting there and, he's got the giggles and like what you're saying with your mom, right? It was like all of a sudden, no, they weren't better, but the quality of life came back, right? It was like this magical moment. And, he's sitting there and he's giggling and deadpan looks me in the eye and he's like, Christina, you are getting me fucking high, aren't you? And I'm like, uh, yes, Dad. Yes, I am getting you high. And he's like, it's okay. It's okay. This is good times. He's like, but I wish you would have told me because now I understand where the munchies are coming from. He's like, because he didn't have an appetite towards the end and he just couldn't figure out why all of a sudden he wanted to eat again. But like what you're saying, it was like, he was my dad again. It was like this quality of life came back. And, I think after experiencing that, I was like, no, there's something in that plant. There's something fucking magical about it. And more people should have access to it.
Yeah, when you see those moments and it's like, yeah, it rehumanizes people because they're like the side effects to some of the medicines that we give people. It takes away from their energy, their like entire life force and their personality, and that's so heartbreaking to witness. I'm sorry your dad went through this, but I think it's really beautiful that you're able to give him those moments where it's like, yeah, I'm getting you high. Also, snacks, yeah.
Snacks. I mean, like I said, I do. I have some pretty solid memories towards the end there of us, standing in the kitchen at literally like 1 in the morning making making chili because he was like, I could go for chili right now. And me being like, all right, so I got the stuff to make chili. Let's make chili, Dad. Let's do chili, right? Like I said, golden moments that, in all honesty, I don't think I would have gotten if I hadn't gotten my dad high.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. It does remind me, and it's probably a bit incriminating for mum, but whatever. We in a recent battle with cancer, we were in the hospital waiting for her to get chemo, and she was taking capsules from Heyday. She was taking some flower products. She had some oils. So she had a whole bunch of products that I'd had a hand in growing for the medicinal market. I was really, really excited by this, and so she was comfortably stoned. It helped with nausea, it helped with sleep, it helped with all these things. She would get to the hospital, and she'd have her little Stores and Bickle crafty, and she'd sneak into the toilet just before she ducked in for chemo, and she'd come out, like, cheeched, like, looking really cheeched, and be sitting there in those awkward chairs waiting to go in for chemo, and I remember mum looking at me and be like, "Should we get burgers?" Oh. You're the only person here in this whole cancer ward wanting me to run and get them burgers before chemo. So she's sitting there literally with the um with the medicine going into her arm, snacking on a burger. I'm like, this is great. Like that and I think that whether it I don't know, cannabis has like everyone talks about the anti-cancer potential and then all of these other amazing benefits, the cannabinoids. But at the very least, I know that cannabis helped mum eat better, sleep better, relax better, and have less nausea, so she could move and stretch and be human. So for her to have that appetite, and she's a tiny little lady, smashing in 2 burgers and going for chemo, I think made that chemo bout a whole lot more tolerable. Yeah, absolutely classic though.
100%. I'm with you 100%, right? Like, a lot of times you do get into conversations with people where, it's the wonder drug, it's this, it's that, it's gonna cure everything and da da da. I think a lot of us wanna believe that, and in a medical sense, we do need more studies, we need more evidence to back that up. But like what you're saying, one thing I know beyond any reason of like, I know for a fact cannabis improves quality of life. Maybe not for everybody. I can't say that across the board as a blanket statement, but for a lot of people who are going through various different things, it improves their quality of life.
100%. That's it. Like the silver bullet, maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, yeah, if we can find cannabinoids and cannabinoid medicines that suit or help people battle whatever it is, whether it's societal health or even just their own like mental and emotional stability. Like cannabis is a tool that should be on people's tool belt, or at least they should know they can reach for it when they need to. I think that's really important.
I agree 100%. Okay, so let's talk about your growing background. You're big on sustainability. Where does that come from?
Probably from spending a lot of time out in nature and yeah, having a strong influence from my sister. So I guess I've always had an appreciation for sustainable agriculture, and I think if we step a little bit further back, it may even come back from some strange family experiences. I grew up in cotton farming in Moree, and it was cotton farming is not exactly sustainable agriculture, but like the entire town of Moree is built on the cotton industry. Everyone worked in the industry, was a farmer and equipment supplier, blah blah blah. And so moving into cannabis, but with this ethos of I want to produce cannabis sustainably, can that be done? And then the bigger challenge was, can we produce sustainable cannabis to a pharmaceutical standard? So ethical production of cannabis, growing it organically, looking after the planet, the people, the farm, acting as caretakers of the land, and then hitting standards. Like I think there's amazing lessons from permaculture, from biodynamics, from natural farming techniques, and all of these have their place, but you can cherry pick a little bit from each of them, and this is what the sort of recipe was for Puro, is how can we take a little bit of lessons from permaculturalists, from natural farming, from biodynamics and preparations, and then use them all as different tools to get to a product that has acceptance in the pharmaceutical space, hits all the minimum quality standards, doesn't have contaminants, is repeatable, abides by all the regulatory quagmire that we have to wade through. So I found that a really good personal challenge. And then sort of circling that back to wanting to prove a point to my family as well. Be like, well, yeah, we can do agriculture at a large scale without the cost to the environment and the cost to the planet of some of the, I guess, less sustainable approaches to agriculture.
I was just about to say, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about environmental impact and cannabis cultivation?
So, like, I think a lot of people underestimate the impact of controlled environment agriculture. So, essentially, playing God, like you're looking at setting up an indoor facility with lighting, dehumidifiers, humidifiers, air conditioning, air movement control. You're controlling every parameter. Whereas if you look at setting up an effective, say, low tech protected cropping greenhouse or glass house in the right environment, you can have the same quality of product without the huge footprint. And don't get me wrong, I think controlled environment agriculture has a really important place. Like for researchers, particularly, my first project in the cannabis world was with RMIT University. We had to set up grow rooms that were PC compliant, that allowed people to get pharmaceutical levels of replication. So very, very stringent environmental controls because they wanted to be able to replicate profiles and study a plant with every parameter controlled. Do I think that's necessary for large scale commercial agriculture? Not really. So I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that large scale indoor facilities have, and they can be done really well. Like, look at Steve Cantwell. This is great for anyone that's listening to have a Google. Steve Cantwell is an MMA, retired MMA fighter. They used to call him the robot. And he's the loveliest person I know. He's super gentle. He could probably crush my skull with one hand, but he is, yeah, just a beautiful human. He got out of professional fighting, started growing cannabis to help his injuries, and set up a living soil. I don't love the term, but a soil organic, a soil organic grow indoors under lights, was offsetting his own water use, offsetting his own power needs. So he's done controlled environments without a huge environmental footprint. And so he's growing some of the best cannabis in the world. I have a list of the top 5 cannabis products that I've consumed. I think he's sitting number 3 for me at the moment. And I was fortunate traveling with a good friend Maverick. We got to try some of his product, and another friend Bryce. I've been and visited him a few times because he's the showcase in the world of how you can do controlled environment agriculture without the big footprint. So it can be done, but it's definitely worth considering. Like, what is the impact? Am I supporting local? And that's the last one. We'll finish this ramble up. It's going for local production is super important, and that's how you reduce that footprint. For us at Puro, it's sourcing inputs as close to farm gate as possible. Like, there's no point buying a Norwegian sea kelp product and calling ourselves sustainable. That doesn't make any sense. Like, why am I shipping an IBC of seaweed around the world and then pretending that's better than a bottle of fertilizer? So there's sourcing as local as possible. And then from the consumer point of view, encouraging that, trying to buy from local farms that support local industry, that are buying from local ag suppliers people, and then using local packaging. That I think has a really, really big impact on sustainability and reducing that footprint.
I was going to say, how do you, because it's very hard to educate patients or consumers in this space. How do you educate them on the importance of choosing a product that is sustainably grown and sourced?
It's one of my pet peeves in the industry at the moment is the smoke and mirrors around branding, marketing, and labels. Like cannabis cultivar names, the misnomer of sativa indica, and then anyone can call anything anything. And so you have people putting a cool name on a packaging, on a packet or a satchel or a glass jar, calling it whatever they want and having no accountability. It's not like in the viticulture or the wine industry, we appreciate the terroir. We know who the farmer was, where it was grown, what the soil type was, what the season was that year. Cannabis, a lot of it's just smoke and mirrors. Here's THC, here's cannabinoids, here's terpenes. A few of them now are starting to write on the packaging, was this grown in a cocoa coir substrate? Was this grown in rock wool, which is not great for the environment? But I think, yeah, really starting to push patients and consumers to ask who grew this and where. I know it's not written on the packet, but surely you can ask the wholesaler, where did this come from? And the wholesalers generally know, is this a Colombian product? Is it a Thai product? Is it Australia or New Zealand? If it's an Australia or New Zealand one, cool. Can we look up that farm and are they transparent enough to show us in their glass house? Are they showing us what their fields look like the good, the bad, and the ugly? I think farmers should be able to tell that story a bit more. But I think we're also all a little bit scared of the TGA, and no one wants to incur the wrath of the regulators and be perceived to be advertising. So up until now, everyone was really coy, and now it's like, no, let's tell our story. Is this a Yarra Valley product? Is this from Marlborough, New Zealand? How was it grown? Who's the grower? And I think that really supports the concept of an ethical cannabis product because you know the story from seed to when it gets prescribed out to you. But I think I have to ask the questions.
I'm really big on trying to support local. It is hard in the cannabis industry because a lot of times you don't know exactly where things are coming from. Like, oh, it was grown in Canada, but it was packaged in Australia. Oh, it was this, but then it was that. And you know what I mean? I'm with you. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. But one of the things that, again, to reinforce what you're saying, that's frustrating is that I feel like I understand it's cannabis. I understand it's a Schedule 8 medication. I got that, right? But at the same time, I also feel like what you're saying, it's an agricultural product. And if we can talk about why our beef is so great and why our macadamias are so great and why our wine is so great, why can't we talk about why our cannabis is so great? Why can't we talk about, again, the stories about the farm and where it came from and why we're growing it there and like what you're saying, oh, well, maybe we're growing it in this valley because it's got more hours of sunshine than another valley. And we use that to offset our solar power, whatever it is. On some level, as a consumer, as a patient, I do care about that and I do want more of that. Like, There was a company, I can't think off the top of my mind who it was, but they were getting flour from, I believe, Thailand. And long story short with it, they had this whole program where like $2 of every one of their tub went back to Thailand for education. And I'm like, how come nobody knows this? This is phenomenal. Why, And they were literally like, oh, we can't talk about it. And I'm like, but why?
It's so frustrating. And you're right, like that concept of being able to ask the question and the smoke and mirrors is so, so frustrating. I think, yeah, the more we as patients and then the doctors and the clinics start pushing for that information, the more publicly it'll become available. Because it is, yeah, endlessly frustrating not knowing that. And then, yeah, how do we compete as a country? Like, I'm putting Australia and New Zealand together here. We talk about how good New Zealand wine is. We talk about how good Australian beef is, but we don't really publicly go out there. And I know there's going to be people who say, "Oh, but California weed is better, and Canadians have been doing it longer, and Colombia is cheaper." Whatever. Australia has great farmers. Australia has great natural resources, and Australia has amazing environments to grow cannabis. We have all of the ingredients, and now the genetics game is really leveling up in Australia and New Zealand, like significantly. So we are able to compete, but we need to be able to tell that story and showcase like this is how good we can be. And then it won't be about just supplying domestically. It'll be, oh, of course, Germany would want to seek out Australian and New Zealand cannabis because it is really good, like really high quality and really trustworthy. They deliver on what the consumer and the patient and the purchaser is asking for. But we need to tell that story.
Completely agree. I completely agree, and it is. At the end of the day, it's uber frustrating that, like, on some level, we can't even really have the conversation about it. Um, I think you touched on it briefly. Are there any real, like, significant differences, like, when it comes to maybe potency or effects or anything like that when it comes to growing cannabis, say, sustainably versus a traditional method?
I think we're going to start to understand this scientifically a lot more. Like when you're looking at just THC and CBD and maybe the top 5 terpenes, maybe top 5 cannabinoids, it's a very narrow lens. Like we know that 150 cannabinoids that we've isolated. There's 350 terpenes and flavonoids that all act synergistically and have the entourage effect. That's well understood. But a lot of people are purchasing off sort of those 5, maybe 10 metrics. They're looking at products that may be grown in a very, very similar way. Like if you look at someone growing in Rockwell under the same LEDs with the same spectrum, using the same fertilizer, there is no concept of terroir. It's going to be there or thereabouts. The genetic is the only real variable that's dramatically different. Whereas if you look at growing something in sunlight, whether it's in greenhouse or outdoors, with unique genetics and having an approach where you're either doing it organically or trying to tailor a fertigation system, both mineral and organic, to do something a little bit differently, to allow that plant to express itself with unique flavors, with minor cannabinoids in higher levels, and with a difference in flavor and aroma, then we'll start to see those differences. So I think from a medicinal efficacy point of view, it's a factorial nightmare to try to figure this out. Like, does an extra 0.2% of CBC and some humulene make a huge difference for what medical indications? I'm not even going to touch that. But I know if I've got a cultivar grown in a way that embraces that terroir, has slight seasonal variants or differences in the soil type compared to what someone up the road is growing, then there will be a point of difference for it. I look at the wine industry, there's a lot of sort of that $15 bottle of whatever, but then you get to the mid-range price point and you've got these crazy flavors, you've got these esters and aromatic compounds that allow you to express something totally different. Like, how the fuck does that Chardonnay smell like match flint and taste like butter? What the fuck is even doing that? And it's terroir. It's embracing the farmer, their farming methodology, and then how they're taking that product to market. So we'll start to see more of it. What I think is going to be a huge catalyst for change here is novel processing. So live dried flower capturing more or different compounds, and then solventless extraction. So ice water hash, and really embracing that and going, okay, how can I take this unique cultivar, different genetic, grown somehow differently, or even if they're growing it indoors, so, yeah, doing something a bit differently, take that special profile and then capture that right through to a novel concentrate. And then in that concentrate, we might see those minor compounds compounded dramatically or concentrated dramatically and having a really big effect. So I'm pretty excited by what happens with Australia and New Zealand's current round of genetics. And there is a massive trend domestically with people producing hash and rosin and doing fantastic things with it. Like, it's going to make gummies taste better. It's going to make oils different. It's going to make carts that are special. And it's going to make concentrates into delivery methods that really enhance those unique concept or those unique compounds when we're starting to grow. So I think we're on the precipice of a lot of great things.
To circle back ever so slightly, have you ever heard of a cultivar called Holland's Hope?
No.
Long story short with Holland's Hope is that basically this was the flower that saved Holland's cannabis industry, in the sense that in the 80s it was kind of not doing the best, and Holland doesn't have the greatest growing environment. And like I said, long story short with it, Holland's Hope was this flower that was bred specifically to deal with the cold, wet climate, and it was mold resistant. So it makes sense why these seeds were smuggled over to Vancouver and why I've had them in Vancouver, because the environment is very similar. And so one of the things that I believe should happen is we should have an Aussie's Hope, in the sense that somebody out there needs to figure out some genetics that literally thrive in classic Aussie environment. So hot and dry and lots of sun, because we're a sunburnt country. And I feel like if we can figure out an Aussie's Hope, we can start to really rein in some terpenes, because we now know terpenes are like a plant's defense system with things. And I'm like, why can't we come up with an Aussie's Hope? I'm throwing it out there just to piggyback off of your comments about, we pay extra for wine growing in certain regions and farmers. So I'm throwing that out there. But then to continue on with the excitement about the solventless and what's happening in that department, I, as somebody who has migraines, am uber excited about that, because I'm very sensitive to anything that shouldn't be in my plant. And so when you get into concentrates, sometimes some people put some things that shouldn't be in there. So I'm personally very, very excited to know that there are things happening in the background that we're going to start seeing more of this solventless stuff hit the market.
There's a few really interesting points you touched on there. I'll start with the one that I think is really exciting and then get into the one that is potentially really scary. I think cannabis breeding right now is just kicking off. Like, there's pioneers and we're all standing on the shoulders of giants for what people did during Prohibition, particularly because they did it at their own risk. And for that, I think we all need to be appreciative. But in terms of where cannabis breeding is getting to now, it's evolving at an evolving rate. We're seeing better profiles, better agronomic traits, things like triploid genetics starting to be really well utilized and stabilized to the point where they can be grown commercially, so seedless varieties. And that, I think, is super exciting. There's a little bit of a funny push towards like these sort of candy, fruity, lolly flavors. And you speak to a lot of like the old school consumers and they're like, well, it's novel, but what I think is exciting is going for the full rainbow of um, different cannabis profiles that can exist, and then complementing that by really strong agronomic traits. And that, I think we're only just getting started. All the breeders that I work with around the world, they've leveled up their game year on year to the point now where what we're growing at Puro and what I know other growers domestically are producing is light years ahead of what we were doing 3 to 5 years ago. So that I think is really, really exciting. The flip side to that and the one that is a bit scary is around the world, we've seen what the Americans call these spray packs, and there is really good evolutions in technology for people infusing compounds, aromatic and flavor compounds into cannabis, and then in pre-rolls and things that you can't even see. And it may look normal, but if it smells and tastes too good to be true, if it feels wrong, then it probably has something in it that's not natural. I know, like in Thailand, a few colleagues and I have been just befuddled. That's a fun word. Befuddled by a few products that have been put in front of us, and one like tasted like a shisha candy, really amazing, yummy flavors. And a colleague of mine is a Canadian Jedi of cannabis. He was absolutely stupefied. Couldn't put three words together. It totally rewired him. It was really, really concerning. And then I've seen other products where it is so unnaturally aromatically strong and there's no natural reason for it. And granted, some of these compounds could be safe. They could be something we could heat up, burn, combust, vaporize, consume without issue. But the thing is, we don't know. It's like the nicotine vaporizers. Like you're putting hundreds of untested, unregulated compounds that are unnatural artificially into product, and then gambling with people's lives as to whether it will have a short-term adverse effect or a long-term adverse effect. Might taste like candy watermelon, but are you going to get popcorn lung? Like, what happens? So I think a few people haven't seen this yet in Australia, but I've seen this a lot around the world, and it's a real concern for me. So I think that it circles back to what we were talking about before. If you know the farmer, you know the farm, you know how they grew it, and even you have an understanding of what the genetics should be, then it makes it a lot easier to sort of go, hang on, this doesn't feel, smell, taste, or affect me in a natural way. I'm not going to get a repeat for that script. I'm not going to go back and ask for that again. That is a worry. So yeah, it's a concern.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like we're somewhat protected here. Like you got TGO 93, TGO 100. There's minimum quality standards that need to be met. And that's good for, I guess, mostly heavy metals. That seems to be the big one. Like if people are growing with subpar fertilizer, if they're growing in soil that's contaminated, that's going to show up. If they're using pesticides, like we're testing what, like 100 pesticides at the moment for most C of A, which is good, but there's however many tens of thousands of existing and then novel compounds that are being I guess misused for infusing flavors into vape carts or into flowers, and that's the real concern. I think we're probably safer here in Australia than most places. Like Thailand is a Russian roulette with whether you're getting some uh, PGR, like plant growth regulator, mixed in with some heavy metals, grown with a fertilizer that contains just a little bit of extra arsenic, and then infused with some diacetyl or some crazy flavor compound. It's hard to know. There's no safety and oversight. We've at least got a little bit of a safety net protecting us, but I don't think it's. I don't want to see more regulations. That's the last thing I want to see. But I'd like to see more accountability for people. Um, if anyone, like, I don't know, maybe more public access to labs, cheaper labs. If someone has a concern for a product, is there somewhere they can go, hang on, this like tastes like residual solvent, gives me unnecessary migraines. Is there a way that we can test product for contaminants? There's not great industry bodies like in alcohol. You've got a lot of industry groups that provide oversight without they use the carrot rather than the stick. They're not there to slap big fines on people. They're there to just highlight good practices and make sure people are accountable to safe production of compounds. Whereas we don't really have that. We've got the TGA using the stick, and that's kind of it right now.
I'm with you. I think it all ties together in the sense that I wish we could be more transparent, but it's hard to be transparent when you're literally gagged in what you can say. So it's like that double-edged sword. You're like, I'd like to be able to tell you this and I'd like to be able to show you this, but like we keep saying, it's really hard to balance that Am I educating you? Am I advertising? Am I advocate? Like, what exactly? Like, it's tough, but I do think transparency is something that's desperately needed.
Yeah, and then the worst part of all of this is we all end up in the toilet bowl of Reddit, and it is shocking that like CEOs of public companies, large pharmaceutical medicinal producers are looking at Reddit for their customer feedback, for their like customer testimonials and patient information as to the medicinal efficacy. Like I wrote a thing recently, it was just sort of yeah. Uh, uh, Too much relying on Reddit. It's an unregulated patchwork of personal anecdotes, paid reviews, deep knowledge, questionable claims, misinformation, and the occasional gold nugget of real insight. I hate Reddit. I think it's a terrible dark place. But I'll say I have to go in there to see like what are people saying about my product, and it's wild that that's where we end up at because everyone can't communicate with transparency, so we end up in the cesspit of the internet.
Reddit is an interesting place. It's it's very much an echo chamber, and not everybody in there is transparent. There's very few people in there that are like, "Hey, I'm Joe Blow from here, just so you know." Like, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of you think that somebody might be with alternative, ulterior motives or whatnot, and it's very like, I show up in Reddit and I used to be very, very active. I used to try to be like help with education, steer you towards some terpenes, man, go read up on this, go do that. But it's very defeating at times because you feel like, oh, come on, just help me to help you and stop with the negativity. And why can't we just help each other in here?
I feel like I've probably just incurred the wrath of Reddit by talking shit about Reddit. There's going to be some angry people out there now. I'm sorry, Reddit people. Please don't hurt me.
Yeah, forgive me. I'm sorry.
But there is good knowledge on there. There's some people on there that are highly intelligent and offer really good insights, but they're drowned out by people that are paid by corporations, just generally angry or have opinions without foundation. And that's what becomes really frustrating about it, is it's not like it's hard to find good information amongst everything that's in there. So it's yeah, um I wish there was a better place for us to communicate as a platform and provide product feedback and provide information that doesn't necessarily need to be have regulatory oversight, but just some level of community forum that's not so adverse to everything.
I'm with you. Like I said, it is. It's frustrating. There are some good eggs in there. There are some people in there that have got some really good knowledge and are more than happy to share their knowledge. It's just on some level you're like, dude, I got to deal with the stigma out here with stoner this and stoner that. And now I got to come into this group and I still got to deal with a stigma because you guys are spreading some serious misinformation in here.
Yeah. I don't know. I've thought about going like, all right, let's set up a Reddit Tom Forrest account and be like, ask me anything. Let me help you with like I've got a little bit of knowledge in this space. I feel like I can help with some good insights and tell you what goes on. And then speaking to colleagues and my business partners, they're like, you don't have time for what that will that will open just a can of worms of energy that's like you can't afford. I'm like, well, I'd like to, but I don't know. At the moment, we're kind of there's a little bit of a spook. We've just released a thing called Grow Zone magazine, and that is something I'm really excited about because it means I can go to all of my like PhD scientists, doctors, researchers, colleagues, like people that I hold in the highest regard for real foundational information in the cannabis world, and ask them questions and get their published information and put it in a nice little 80-page magazine with some beautiful pictures. And so I like being able to share knowledge, and that's one way where I'm like I can just get good scientifically backed. Like every issue we've done so far has had multiple PhDs contribute to it.
I love it.
Did I get you?
Yeah, you sent me the first edition. I loved it. It was full of information. And shameless plug right now, where can people get the magazine?
So we've printed out, I think, around 15,000 copies now. We've given them out to grow stores throughout Australia and New Zealand, dispensaries throughout Australia and New Zealand. We've got them at certain grows in Thailand as well, and a few grow stores there. Or online, like we do have it published there. It's definitely a lot nicer to have a tactile magazine, but we have the issue one is published online, and I am just about to put the final touches on issue two that'll go to print later this month. It's super exciting. We've got Dr. Gianni talking about why trichomes exist. We've got some super pro tips from the best growers in the world talking about propagation. We've got a whole look into how fertilizers are made from organic to mineral and why there is a difference in safe and efficacious fertilizer. And then a bunch of amazing artists. My friend Ben Lopez, he's one of the most talented artists in the world. We've got a huge feature on him. We've got some cool new music in there. It's yeah, I think issue two is like super exciting. So keep an eye out for that around Australia and New Zealand and Thailand and hopefully around the world.
I love it because I saw you sent me the first edition and I was like, oh man, I like this. The artwork in it, the way it's laid out. I was like, yeah. Are you you're not a one-man show with that. You've got some people helping you out, right?
Absolutely. So we've got a friend of ours in South America, Julian Bustos. We loved his art. He was helping us with some product artwork. And then we said, man, can you help us with a magazine? So he's the artistic director. So I'm kind of responsible as the executive editor for all of the written content, the articles, the interviews. He's responsible for the art. And then we, as a team, contribute with like Cannabis Cup events and different events around the world and all the different community aspects that go into the book. So I think there's a team behind it. The guys at Stealth Garden are the cornerstone of the magazine, and that's Stealth Garden is Thailand. And yeah, collectively we kind of come together with what are we trying to do with each issue, and it's a pretty good mixing of the minds. We've got people that have experience in all walks of the cannabis world, and we want it to be about growing, consumption, and then the culture around it: music, artists, events, and just the community when we get together and celebrating those moments. So it's more than just a grow book, and we put a few ads for our amazing products in there as well that helps pay for this foundation or for this publication to come to life.
You've got to, man. You got to. But I was gonna say I remember as I was reading through it thinking to myself, I was like, oh wow, this is very balanced, like common theme here, very well balanced in the sense that you're right. It did. It was a little bit of culture. It was a little bit of, okay, well, this is what we're growing. This is a little bit of what's going on over here. And I loved it because like what you're saying, great information in it. And on some level, we're all looking for information.
Exactly. And being able to know that, like, an article by Dr. Gianni about trichomes is going to be the cutting edge of information about trichomes in plants, about propagation from one is literally the best cloning cultivator, knowledgeable grower that is in the world. Is a top of the class. And so the information that's in there is not, I don't know, some of the old school cannabis grow books are like how to grow weed up a tree. And then some of the magazines are 90% advertisement. And so we kind of went, oh, there's a gap here for really good sound information that's supported by the right people and is visually like beautiful. Like the artwork and the way that we put together the publication is really special. So yeah, that's one of my favorite projects, and it kind of is that sharing of knowledge and education as much as we can.
I love it. And I'll definitely drop it in the show notes for sure. Before I let you go, breaking news of yesterday, won't be yesterday by the time this comes out, but yesterday, Cannatrek and Heyday, little merger action going on there. What does that mean for Puro? Because Puro and Heyday have a great relationship.
Yeah, so Heyday are awesome. Phoebe and Jim are two of my favorite people, the founders of Heyday. They're motivated by the right things. They're unbelievably knowledgeable. Jim's one of Australia's best, or one of the world's best cannabis doctors and knowledgeable people about the endocannabinoid system. Phoebe is a weapon. She has a corporate legal background and is just a powerhouse, inspiring leader, and just a lovely human being. So I really have loved working with them over the years. They take our Puro product and formulate it into amazing Heyday medicines. And they're working with us with our genetics, our development of minor cannabinoids, and even our novel processing. So it's been a really beautiful relationship, and I'm really fortunate to work with them. They're just salt of the earth people. So hearing this news, I think it's really exciting. Cannatrek has had some challenges, some, I guess, growing pains, to put it politely, about some of the things that they've experienced. But I also have a soft spot in my heart for Cannatrek. So when my mum recovered from her illness, I contacted one of the senior members at Cannatrek and said, "Hey, can you give my mum a job?" So she ended up working in their Moggle facility for a couple of years there, and was she's my mum, she's amazing. Was universally loved by the Cannatrek team there at the time, and they still reach out to me and ask how she's going. So I have really fond thoughts about Cannatrek, but I think the synergies that come together there is Heyday was a really ethical operator, but without necessarily the reach of one of these powerhouse multi-million-dollar companies like Cannatrek. So putting Phoebe and Jim steering a much bigger ship is, I think, a really, really strong power play. What does that mean for Puro? I get to see more of our products coming to market in larger volume with different product formats. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how a greater reach of Puro products is received by the market. I'm really confident that we're growing every year in terms of we're improving our processes. We've got better quality than we ever have. And so seeing that reinvigorated by a partnership with one of our best industry partners is something that I think will help. So I love seeing the good news stories. I want to see the industry succeed. I want to see people have a win, and it's nice when they are good people having a win. So I'm really excited by it.
Me too. I'm very excited about it. I mean, on some level, yeah, there was a little hesitation there, Cannatrek, whatever. But like you, um, I love Dr. Jim. I've had him on the podcast. He's a great guy, and I've got mad respect for the work that they've done with the minor cannabinoids. They're out there taking risks with their innovation line that nobody else even seems to really want to be taking. And so for me as a consumer and as a patient, that's exciting for the same reason that it's exciting for you at Puro is all of a sudden now those products hopefully will be on more shelves. So it's not okay, I got to get a special script and I have to go to, and I'm not hating on compounding, like I'm not at all. But right now it's, you can only get it from the one place, right? And so I'm hoping that this now means that I can now get it from my local pharmacy, my local dispensary, because again, Cannatrek's got an amazing reach. So hopefully that trickles out and we do start to see some money put behind more of those innovative products.
Exactly. And I think there's a big push there where, like, even in the press release that came out, they said we want to support domestic production, which is huge. Like, being a vertical cannabis company is a big ask, and I think a lot of these early big companies tried to do that, and now seeing them partner up with specialists that really thrive in their role in the value chain is a natural evolution in the industry. And for me, in the cultivation and ag supply side of things, that gives me more confidence because I know, all right, I've got more stability in my supply chain. I can make sure that I'm getting product. Like, I'm already starting to procure seed for harvest 2026. So that'll be launched in mid next year. So my crystal ball gets a little bit easier to work with when our business partners have that level of stability in their forecasts. And that stability allows creativity because it means, oh, cool, we know we're going to do some beautiful CBD or CBG or minor cannabinoid flower. Maybe we can experiment with some hash or rosin products from that. I can be a little bit more creative with that stability as a foundation. So, yeah, I think seeing these stories of the right people, like finding their groove and really thriving in the industry, I think is a win for everyone.
I do too. It's very much a watch the space.
Yeah.
Very much. It's been absolutely delightful talking to you, Tom. Before I let you go, though, do you have one nugget of information or maybe a call of action that you'd like to leave listeners with?
I think the big call to action, as I've probably mentioned once or twice, 1,000 times on this talk, and it has been lovely speaking to you. We always have good chats.
We do.
I think for me, it's about just really supporting local. Support local and try to find, or at least ask the question, is this ethical cannabis? Do I know where this was grown and how? And am I comfortable with that? Some people might want the cheap and be okay with it being grown internationally with just the bottom line is that dollars are going to drive some people. But I think a lot of people will get a lot of benefit if they ask the question, how is this grown, by who, and like where? So yeah, support local, support everyone from your, not asking people to break the law here, but if it's a local black market grower that you buy from, support that guy or girl. If it's a local legal medicinal cannabis farm that you love, support them. But at least ask the question and know where did it come from. And yeah, try not to spread too much misinformation on Reddit.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Oh, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, people.
Wait, did these people's mums not teach them that before they got on the keyboard?
No, that's Bambi. Like, wasn't it Bambi's dad who was like, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all?
Well, I don't know. My mum taught me that one. So you learned it from Bambi. That's great.
I'm telling you, it's Thumper's dad or Thumper's mom that's like, don't you just say anything if you can't say nothing nice at all.
Old school, had some morals and values in there. That's lovely.
Good old Disney.
And that's a wrap for my conversation with Tom Forrest. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or leave a 5-star review. Every little bit helps spread the word about the important work happening in this space. And if you want to support the podcast, you can now hit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. There you'll find information on how to grab a Can Go, my go-to stash storage solution for medicating on the move. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, finding balance in your life is a lot like trimming your plant. Sometimes you've got to cut back to make room for growth.